Welcome to PhysioEd's presentation of our second uh, in the series for bone health. And I want to introduce me. I'm Kathy Doubleday. I'm a physical therapist in Ojai, California. And I want to welcome Dr. Kaitlin Ryan, who is coming to us from Wisconsin, where she lives and works in home health. So she goes out to people's homes to help them with issues as they come out of the hospital or because they're not able to get into a clinic to see her. So welcome, Kaitlin.
Thank you, Kathy. Happy to be here.
She was out actually working with patients just right up until this time. So
this is true.
She just ran back to be part of this with us. All right. And you're going to maybe just a little bit closer with your mic, I think.
Sure, I can do that. Or at least try to. We'll see how it goes.
Okay. So today, like I said, we're focusing on bones, but we're focusing on how to prevent a fracture of a bone. And falls are the place that we're going to focus today. Is if we don't fall, we're much less likely to break a bone. It's very challenging throughout the day sometimes to take a look around and try to help prevent falls. There are a lot of things in our life that we might be able to improve on because many falls, a high percentage of falls are preventative, right? So let's think about how we want to kind of talk about how we prevent falls by looking at our life. So patients tell us all the time about scenarios that led to their falls, right, Kaitlin? So you've probably had that as part of your interview with people almost every time you go into someone's house, right?
Absolutely.
It's really high on the list of priorities. Tell us a little bit about some of the issues that you see with patients.
Sure. So, obviously depends on each patient, right? Why the fall occurred. Sometimes it's a mechanical fall. Something was in the way and they tripped. That happens all the time, whether it's a rug or the dog got in the way, something like that is very common. Other reasons are maybe they've got poor sensation or neuropathy in their feet. So they're not well balanced. They can't really feel the ground very well. Or if they have any sort of neurological conditions where their coordination isn't good because those nerves in the brain are not talking to each other. A lot of times reaching overhead in the kitchen is a big thing too, especially if someone's got some sort of vertigo where they reach and they suddenly get dizzy, that can happen. Or if they're just a little bit off balance with leaning backwards. Kind of going into a garden or an uneven surface, that's super common as well, just because the ground isn't super secure. Out in Wisconsin, the ice, that's a big thing. A little different in Ojai. You don't have to deal with that so much, but our patient caseload goes way up in the wintertime just from ice, even if it's the stairs, getting out of their car, anything like that can cause some serious problems.
We're thinking about, we're thinking kind of more. PhysioEd is really trying to look at prevention, right? So these are things that we deal with in the medical field a lot, right? A lot of hospitalizations or just emergency rooms, or maybe even, falls that cause an injury, but maybe don't make it to the emergency room. But there are 3 million ER visits a year for people who have fallen and injured themselves. And 1 million of those have to go to the hospital and stay a certain amount of time. And unfortunately, about 41,000 people a year die from a fall. So we don't talk about this because we want to scare people about it. We want to just help you understand its importance and that it happens to a lot of people. It is very common for falls to happen, but not part of the normal aging process. It's usually a sign that something went wrong or some circumstance that could be prevented is in place, right? So the cost to you of your time and maybe financially, your inability to work, your inability to participate in things goes way up. So the thing that we notice is that there's a lot of things that we can do to prevent these falls. So that's why we're here today, because we really want to talk about the prevention. And that if you invest, we call this the investment principle in physical therapy, you invest your time up front in prevention, home modifications, in doing an exercise program, in keeping yourself active so that you are practicing balance issues, then you're going to not have that big bill at the end of your hospitalization or that huge amount of time out of your life. So falls are the leading cause of hip fractures. And the hip fracture, along with like wrists and elbows and other things, and also hitting your head. But so there could be something, you could have a fracture in your skull, but hip fractures are really the main thing that we're looking at with a lot of these falls. So when we've done some studies to look at how can we prevent falls or how can we improve people's capacity to avoid falls, it comes down to a couple things. And one of them is home modifications. And also the other half is exercise programs, right? So exercise and physical therapy type things to help you change the way you react to a stumble or react to moving around your environment. And I think this is a really big number in terms of if we combine those two things, if you do both of these things, you look around your house and you make modifications when needed, and you do an exercise program, there was a 41% reduction in falls. I mean, I think that's quite substantial. I mean, that's a huge impact on the number. If you think about that 3 million people going to the ER, I mean, think of all the people that have fallen and maybe almost hurt themselves bad enough to go to the ER, but didn't. There's a lot of people. So 41% of those people could improve and not have that fall next time. So that's where we're at. Kaitlin, do you have anything else to talk about with that stuff?
You did absolutely great. I think it's super important, talking about the preventative aspect of the falls. You're not going to prevent every fall, but anything you can do to prevent one from happening is really just going to help you in the long-term functional mobility, cost of your time, cost of expenses in the hospital. So I think you hit it all.
Okay, great. So now we want to understand a little bit more about how our senses, how our body works, like from the internal systems. How does the environment, how do our senses work with the environment to affect our balance? So do you want to tell us a couple of the big ones, Kaitlin, that impact how we see the world and how we move around the world?
Sure. I always tell my patients you've got 3 systems that help you stay upright and keep you balanced. First is our vision. It reacts the fastest. It helps us with seeing things, avoiding objects, all of that. It just helps us keep our awareness in the world. And, if we're tilted to the right or to the left. Another big one is our proprioception, or our joints in our body telling us where we are in space. If you're able to kind of close your eyes and lift your arm up, you're aware that your arm is lifted up in the air, and that's your proprioception. And the other one is the inner ear. I think that one gets talked about a lot, especially for balance. Unfortunately, it's one of the slowest ones. We use it the least. So it's not the one that is first to help us out. So if we start losing our vision from cataracts or glaucoma or something like that, we're really reliant on our vision and our sensation, our inner ear and our sensation. And if we have another condition like neuropathy, where our proprioception isn't good and we can't feel ourselves, now we're really reliant on our inner ear. So I think it's an important thing to really, fine tune the inner ear and your vestibular system in order to help with all these falls and preventions. And, things like you talked about, things can go kind of wrong with vertigo or some other condition like Meniere's, and, things happen, and you really need to try and address that. But there's some
Yeah.
preventative
So
things
in
you can do.
therapy, we actually address a lot of those types of symptoms, right? And we have to assess all of those components. So those three big sensory systems are working together to keep you balanced. So if you're on something uneven, that's challenging your proprioception, your joint senses. And I always like to remind people that it's not just our feet, because a lot of times people say, well, I have peripheral neuropathy and I can't feel the ground. But there's a lot of senses coming from all of our joints. So, especially our spine. So, if we have really stiff spines like backs and necks, and we can't move our necks very much, that could also be an impact on how we sense where we are in the world. So, those sensory organs can get tuned up a little bit if we're able to practice more. Then we can tune up, say, the sense in our joints, right? So our joints get better at noticing those subtle movements and those subtle changes that might help us keep our balance on, slippery ice. There's just not much you can do.
It's just not. I
I
agree.
mean, you can be a good ice skater and still slip on the ice, right?
Yep.
So it's a challenge, but the more you practice in the environment that you want to be better at, the better you can get at that. And then there's the one that I have. One of my patients told me a story quite recently, and she was training, hiking, walking extra miles to get ready for a big trek that she was doing. And she was out on the beach and she hit the seaweed, the kelp, and she slipped on the kelp and injured her shoulder severely. And it kept her from going on her trip because of that, right? So that's sort of an explanation, or like an example. That's an example of how that slippery surface, and it's not just in the ice. We've got it in the kelp here in California. So, and then the movement of your head, helps you get that sense of inner ear movement, right? And so a lot of people do have limits in their vestibular system, and then the visual. So all those things together. And then there's a couple other things, right? We talked about some environmental things, right? So what you come across in your day. So it could be less surface, like we said, slippery surface or uneven surface if you're outside. Then lighting inside, right? Inside, if it's dark and you can't see the contrast of that edge of the stair, even if it's in your house where you walk there all the time. I have this one step that comes from our entry, and we have to go down to any room. You have to go down a step. And there's one room that just doesn't have as much light. And I always miss that step. I always kind of have to look at it. I'm extra cautious because it's just a weird angle and it's a weird lighting. And for some reason I'm bound to misstep there. So think about those things. Lighting is very important. And then, just having an obstacle in the way, right? Like clutter collects. It just does. So if those things are in your way, those are going to be big problems. And then the other big one, Kaitlin, you might want to talk about this one more, is that how do we react to the balance loss? So I missed that step, but I've never fallen on that step because I practice a lot, because I am trying to keep my legs strong. So having strength, right? Having strength in our body.
Yeah, absolutely. If your muscles, even if your body is trying to move and your nerves are reacting, and kind of that gut instinct of, oh, I'm having a fall, I need to move. If you don't have the strength to catch yourself, That's super difficult. And our core strength is extremely important for maintaining our balance and our spinal positions. And, if you don't have good core strength and you suddenly kind of lean one way, you really need to be able to react to that and be able to pull yourself up. And your leg strength is extremely important. Our ankle strength is very important for our balance. Our bodies typically, start with our balance for our ankles, and then they can go to our knees and our hips. So all of those joints and being strong there can really help us with those reactions. And like you're talking about that fast movement that you have when you suddenly kind of lose your balance, if you're not strong enough to catch yourself there, then you can have that fall. So sometimes there's just nothing you can do. Something's in the way, but anything you can do to help with that reaction, I think, is very important for the fall prevention.
Yeah. And we kind of wanted to do, I almost forgot about this. We kind of wanted to do a little bit of a demonstration sort of thing. I want you guys to be sitting on the edge of your chair. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to close our eyes. Okay. So we're going to close our eyes and you're just going to be sensing. And then I want you to sway your body right and left and forward and back, and just feel how you can sense where you are. You know where you are in space. You're not looking at it, but you can feel how far you're moving. You might be able to tell how quickly you're moving and what direction you're moving. So all of that information is coming from our joints. It's not, and our inner ear actually too. Yeah. So
don't forget that one.
So yeah, our joints and our inner ear. So like we take away the vision, we can challenge the other systems of sensation, right? So that's kind of why we wanted to show you and talk about this, because it's a big part of what we decide to do for helping you get better. That because our vision sometimes is so powerful, we may rely on it so much, but then when we're in those situations, like we're holding something and we can't see the ground, or it's the low light and it's dark in a parking lot and we can't really see as well, we can't rely on some of those other systems that need to kick in to really take over for the vision being out, not working as well, or lower capacity for helping you. Okay. So that's kind of that give and take that we can help with how we challenge people. So that's something that we do a lot in physical therapy, is play with those components and challenge you in different ways to help you be ready to take on those different tasks. All right. So let's go to, are you ready to go into some modifications? We're going to just run through a few of the rooms in your house and things that you can maybe do. We want to look at our life. This is a big picture, I think, for this part. And we want to look for potential risks. Okay. We want to make sure that we adapt beforehand. We want to prevent the action of a problem happening. We're going to reduce our risk by looking at our environment, our house, our daily activities, and see where we can reduce things, reduce the risk. So, Kaitlin, why don't you talk about one of the biggest ones, the bathroom?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. So anytime I walk into a patient's bathroom, almost like 9 out of 10 times, maybe 10 out of 10, there's a rug. Number one for me, get those rugs up. There's always rugs in front of the toilet or in front of the sink, in front of the shower. So if you're going to be wet, obviously it'd be good to have a towel down at that point when you're getting in and out. But if you're not taking your shower, you can always just put that rug over the bench or whatever it is on the end there. So it's not in the way if, let's say, you have to go past that rug to go to the toilet. So either you remove the rugs or you tape them down. That's what I say all the time. Having the right equipment. So grab bars could be something. Some toilets, they're very low. So either you get a high toilet or you get a toilet, like a raised toilet seat. And if you just need a little push and there's not, you don't want to install the grab bar or something like that, there's something called toilet safety frames, where it's basically an armrest that you can put around your toilet so you can push off of there. And then what you talked about too with your lighting is a night light. I would say that a lot of recommendation that I have is the fall is going to happen in the middle of the night when you're rushing to get to the bathroom. So anything you can do to prevent the fall when you're rushing to get to the bathroom in the middle of the night is what you want to do. So night lights are great for your vision to be able to help you see, because let's be honest, middle of the night, we're all a little groggy. It's dark out and falls can happen at that time. So I think the bathroom is really a key place where you can set yourself up for preventing a fall.
Yeah, great. Like, and I want to just let you guys know, because we're going to go through a few of these different rooms. It's okay if I have a list, a home safety checklist that we are going to give to you guys in the chat. So Greg is going to put it in the chat, and that will have a link for you to get the safety checklist. I'm going to show it to you real quick, just so you know what it looks like. So you don't have to scramble to write a bunch of stuff down right now. Okay, I guess I can't share. Okay. But anyway, there's going to be a link in the chat and we'll be able to get you one sent over. Okay. Okay. Yeah, we're going to be taking questions a little bit later. So please, if you have a question, there's a Q&A section here. You can click on the bottom and you can go ahead and just put your question in there, and we will go to that right after we get through a few more things. Okay. So thank you so much. Yeah, put your questions in when they come to you, because if not, you'll probably forget about it. So that's great. Okay, we went through the bathroom, and now let's go through the kitchen real quick too. I think I always mentioned it, carrying something while you're walking around. Like if you have a heavy thing of water off the stove and you have to go over to the sink, different movements like that where you have a baking dish or something. So you just want to make sure that there's clear space for you, that you have enough strength and control to handle that pot, and that you sort of check it out and know how many steps, kind of give yourself a little bit of preparation, a feed forward, thinking about it before you do it, not reacting in the moment and like not having any idea, any plan of what I might do. Maybe you slide it across the countertop instead of lifting and carrying it. So there's some ways you can modify just those big kind of lifting objects where you can't see well. So that's, again, thinking about which tasks are harder because you can't see your feet. Your feet may not feel as well if your feet can't feel where you're going. But that's where your vision is up, because you're noticing how you are walking across the room. So it's a little bit easier. You can use your vision, but you just can't see your feet. So don't want to have to step over the dog at the moment you're carrying a pot across the kitchen. So something like that. The other thing that I have had several patients, it sounds funny, but it happens like really quite regularly, is they open the dishwasher door, right? And it's down, and then you go do something else on a different part of the kitchen and you might forget that it's down, and you turn around quickly and just fall over it. And that has been I can remember at least 3 patients that I've had who have fallen over the dishwasher door and been injured or slightly injured because of it. So it's a spot. I say don't turn your back on it, or if you do, only for a moment, and just remember that it's down and push it up if you're going to go do something else. Just get it out of the way so you don't accidentally forget about it. And then, reaching, do you teach reaching strategies? like
Oh yeah.
shifting weight and things like that?
Absolutely. I actually did it with the patient that I have this morning because she really likes to, keep her feet really narrow and then reach far outside her base of support. So I often teach kind of the boxer stance where you get your feet wide and you get them staggered. That way your base of support is really nice and wide and you're able to reach a lot safer that way. And in addition to making your base of support wide, just getting close to the things that you are reaching for is important too. Sometimes you can't prevent it, something's in the way and you got to reach, but the closer you can get to the item that you need, the safer you're going to be with your reaching. So we kind of, modifying your home where you, if you can, keep things within reach. So things you're using often, try and keep it where it's in an easily accessible place so you're not always reaching for those things. So that's extremely important too. Kitchen, I think that's the big thing.
Yeah, great. And then how about let's go to stairs next because that's I think that's next the
Most
next
important.
priority after the bathroom and maybe the kitchen is the stairs. So what things do you really want to focus on with stairs? There's some obvious, but
Yeah, I mean, having handrails, those are a big one. So both sides, that's really important. I don't want to be specific for like after a surgery, but I don't think people realize, you can just walk up a stair and suddenly, you can't use your leg or your something quite as well. Having your handrail on both sides really helps with that. There are times where the lighting is super important too. Basement lighting isn't always the best. So trying to make sure that you have your light on before you walk down those stairs is extremely important as well. Making sure you're really clearing your feet from the stairs. Sometimes I even do it where my heel hits on one step and I just slide right down onto the next one. So important with that is wearing the correct shoe. I think you call it sloppy slippers.
yeah.
You call it, yeah.
No
So
sloppy slippers.
no, so
No.
you want to have a shoe on that's going to stay on your foot and isn't going to go flying off or adjust in a way where your foot goes flying down and now you have a fall that way. So even just your footwear can be really important for the stairs, especially.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of something I've heard from several patients as well. Yeah, I had my slippers on and I slipped or it slipped off the edge. I did that going down in my socks one time, carrying my baby, my toddler down the stairs, and I went down so hard because I had my socks. I was carrying him because he was crying, and I was trying to get him down so he didn't wake up his brother. And yeah, you just slip and boom, it's down. So making sure you're wearing the appropriate amount of non-skid socks or no socks or whatever for the stairs. But stairs, yeah, the double railings, I know it's not necessarily always aesthetically or possible, but if you aren't, yeah, on going up, you have it on one side, and then going down, you would have to switch. It's got to be on the other side. So if you have both, then you have the option of always having the correct rail for you. And if you don't have both sides, you do have that, So if you have a wall, that can be helpful as well. But if you really do have an uneven capacity in your legs, that's something you should really think about is having a rail on both sides. In the yard, outside in California, we do a lot of yard work, especially after the rain or whatever. There's a lot of, situations that happen with that. And I think a lot of tools, having, long handled tools that allow you to, maybe you can even use that as a stability post, like holding on to that rake while you take a step somewhere. But hillsides are common here in California and maybe elsewhere as well. Like, when you're standing in an uneven surface. So just watch your footing, double check the earth, how slippery it is. Make sure you take extra precautions. And the hose is the one also. I've had so many situations where people have told me that they were pulling on a hose. It got caught. And instead of walking over there to unhook the hose, they yank on it and then it comes loose and it shoots you across the room because, or across the yard because it's just happens so fast. That's reactive balance, right? Like to be able to react to that hose letting loose quickly, you really have to be, in shape to do that. So if you have any deficits, that's going to be a stimulus for you to fall. So that's an important one. All right, very good. You can always sit down too, right, to do something instead of being in a standing position if you feel like you're unsteady in that position. So make sure you're finding a more steady way of doing things, okay? Always looking for those, precautions and risks, reducing your risk of falling. All right, car, just real quick. The car, the only thing I really feel like getting in and out of the car can be problematic, right? If you're trying to pull on the door to get up, if it's really low, that could cause you to be off balance. But the other quick thing was when I walk people out to the car, sometimes I see them go right up to the door and start to pull the door, and then they have to back away from the door and sometimes like swing the door out, like move their body, and they don't have their feet moving. So that's another thing I always say is like move your feet, like Kaitlin was talking about in the kitchen. You got to walk over to where you need to go. So walk past the door, open the door so you don't have to do a lot of backing up and maneuvering your body to get that door to open up. All right. So those are a few. Let's see. Is there anything else? I think that kind of hits a lot.
Can I do one comment on the car transfer?
Oh yeah, please.
Okay, I know it's a lot. Sorry, everybody.
No, go ahead.
It's like with getting into the car as well for the poor balance. People love to basically lift one leg up, put it in, before they even sit down. And I have patients who will fall because they're throwing that leg up and they don't have good balance and they're falling backwards a lot of times, and hitting your head on a cement floor, asphalt, whatever is no good. So I always recommend sit down in your chair, kind of facing out of the car, and then spin. So then you're lifting your legs into the car. That way you're sitting down already, and it's not like you're standing on one leg while you're trying to throw one in. So I love the sit and spin technique.
Sit and spin. Absolutely. Thank you for adding that in.
Yeah. I think there's a couple questions up here too, Kathy. I don't know if that's a good place for you to break.
It's in the Q&A.
Yeah, looks like they're under answered. So you've got open and answered. So there's one at the bottom there. You want me to read it to you? I've got it up.
If you're hard of hearing and should be getting a hearing aid, does that have any effect on your inner ear? Yes. If you have, it can be. There are different reasons for hearing loss, but usually it's a loss of function of the nerves, and the hearing and the vestibular nerve, the acoustic and vestibular nerves are really part of one nerve section in our cranial nerves. So it can be that the loss of hearing also can be affecting your balance, maybe more subtly. You haven't noticed that yet, or it isn't as dramatic as the hearing loss. So making sure you get hearing checked and hearing corrected is very helpful. It's very helpful for our brain function, for our mentation, for our cognitive function over the long haul, as well as for your vestibular system. It can be helpful in helping your balance. So yeah. Is anything else you wanted to add, Kaitlin, on that at all?
No, I think that's good. It may not, depends on your inner ear problem, but it may not fix it, but helpful for sure, right?
Yeah. And also I was also thinking that you can, if you don't hear something coming up towards you, it also could be another thing. It's not one of the main senses that we use for balance, but certainly to just hear what's going on in the environment could make it harder for you to react. So it's something else that could slow your reaction time. by not getting that early signal of a hearing that sound that could have been um, giving you a heads up. Thank you for the question. Okay, that's it right now. Great. Okay,
Oh,
we will do questions.
Hold on. There's another one. Another one just popped up.
Oh no.
This is an interesting one. If you do fall, what's the best way to fall?
Oh, good question.
That is interesting. So I don't know what this is like from my grandpa, actually. It was always like the tuck and roll technique kind of thing, instead of trying to, do a big brace where you might break a wrist or something that way. I mean, I've lived by that my whole life, even playing sports. I never tried to prevent the fall. I tried to roll with the fall.
Yeah, there's a lot of theories on what's the best way to fall, but I think it's better to crumble to the ground than to timber like a tree, really building a lot of momentum as you go down. So if you don't fight it a lot, you want to try to stop it. And if it's not working, go with it and try to tuck and roll. Tuck and roll is not always easy to do because your instinct is to stick your arms out and to take a lot of fast steps to try to stop yourself, or there's a lot of natural reactions. There are some physical therapists. This is a high level activity. There is an Aikido class going on in Ojai. There are, that's one of the big parts of that they learn. And there are physical therapists using Aikido type strategies to teach people how to fall, because falls do happen and it does help to do it in a proper way. So I always find also is that the people who fall often, like my patients who have like a neurologic problem and they fall a lot, they are much less likely to hurt themselves than someone who falls that one really hard time because they don't have any experience with falling. So falling, not that I want you to fall regularly as a practice, but if you're practicing, yes, that is a way of doing it. So you need to have a big, thick mat to really practice a serious fall and crumbling to the ground and rolling to the ground. So that is something that you can look for in your environment, in your community. There may be someone who's doing that kind of work. So, like I said, Aikido martial art is one of those martial arts that helps you go with the flow, helps you go with the momentum and control the momentum instead of fighting it and battling it and then making it worse. It's about like letting yourself be a little more relaxed into the roll and rolling out of it and controlling the momentum if you can. You slow yourself down with your musculature, and that's why strength in your legs and your trunk and your core or even your arms can help with your tolerance for falling, for your ability to recover from it and to go down with grace, if that's possible. And it is possible a lot of the times. So this is something I'm definitely thinking about and looking at as a possible thing to offer in my clinic. I did buy a mat, but I'm still working on kind of implementing that. But there are some classes out there you might be able to find at a dojo that does Aikido. If you're willing to do a little bit of exercise and learn some new tasks, that is a really great way to help you be ready to control falls. All right. Are those all the questions right now? I think so. Okay. All right. Thank you. Please keep asking questions if you need to clarify something. All right. So we're going to go on to the next section because this is an important section I want to spend some time on. Self-assessment and balance. So we're going to now talk about the actual exercise part, right? We did home modifications. Now we need to exercise. And what are some of the, physical therapists, we have a lot of tests for balance. We have a whole plethora of things that we can do. We have whole sequences of tests that combine together to give us a score to say whether someone's at risk or so we can see the change over time. But what are those ones that are safe to do at home, Kaitlin, that people can do, participants can do on their own?
Sure. So, doing a 30-second sit to stand, want to make sure usually it's a chair without the armrest on it, and you have your hands across your chest, and you're going from sitting to standing, and you're just seeing how many times you can do that in 30 seconds. So I believe the cutoff is less than 10 repetitions means you're at an increased risk for falls.
Yes.
I really like that assessment as part of my practice because it's a little bit of endurance, it's strength, and it's that balance of that transition of weight and your ability to balance immediately upon standing. A little bit of a concern with that is if you have any, orthostatic hypotension, if you get dizzy, if you go from sitting to standing too quickly. So if you have any of those concerns, I seek a professional before doing that one, maybe. Single leg balance stance. That's super easy too. Just standing at your counter, try and stand on one leg. If you can't hold it for 20 seconds without your hands supporting you, you are at an increased risk for falls. So there's just a couple simple, easy ones that you can do at home, just using what you got there.
Yeah. So being able to just give yourself a little assessment. That's something. The other thing I like to say is that, your balance can get better, right? So we're not just assessing to see where you are right now, but what happens when you practice some things. Maybe you take note of how many you did in 30 seconds going up and down. And then in a couple of weeks after you've been doing some of these exercises or you've been practicing it, maybe you'll notice when you time yourself that you can do 12 or 13 or 15 or one every other second. You're up and down. So if you can do 15 or 20, some people can do 30, right? Because every second, up and down. So it's something that you can work on at home and you can kind of judge your improvement as well. Those assessments. And then those go right into being the exercise that you're practicing, right? So you're trying to get better on that test, but you're practicing doing repeated sit to stands. So you're gaining, like Kaitlin said, your strength, your endurance, your skill for doing those things, your ability to bend at your hips and get up quickly and then balance up there. And if you're even stronger, you can do it with one leg. You can do it with an extra step after you get up. So you can advance that into a really challenging exercise. We do that in our circuit class in our club where we have a fitness program for seniors that we add things to it. And so that sit to stand becomes like a really challenging, progressive resistance exercise program. So we've got the single leg balance. And then how do we make it harder? We put one foot in front of the other, right? So you can walk a line. You can stand with that foot out in front. If you can't stand right in a line, like one heel to toe, you can stand just slightly offset. And then that's your, what I call a, tandem stance or a split stance where you've got one leg in front of the other. And then eyes closed. Oh yeah. So we did our eyes closed earlier, just sitting, right? How do you like to give people eyes closed, Kaitlin? How do you have them work at it at home?
Depends on the patient and the situation.
Okay. Yeah.
So, if you're going to be alone and they're safe enough to stand with their eyes closed, you can find a corner in their house or something like that, and with a nice sturdy chair in front of them. If they don't have a corner, sometimes even I've created a corner here just by closing two doors, and now I've got a corner to stand in. If those doors are open, that's not a corner anymore.
Yeah, perfect.
Yep. And then otherwise, it's just even standing at your kitchen sink because you got something to really hold on to. Sometimes a countertop, if it's, flat, can be a little too slick for people. So they can just use their kitchen sink. If your balance is, a little bit too challenged and you're going too aggressive with it too soon, I always like to have another family member standing right by them just in case too.
Yeah. So that's how you can practice your eyes closed, because that's a progression of challenging your proprioception and your vestibular system because your eyes are not helping you, and narrowing your base of support, making it more challenging by walking the line or having one foot in front of the other. And the other one is moving your eyes, which is turning your head. So it's amazing how much more challenging it is if you are standing, balancing, and then you just turn your head. Even slow, just turn and hold it over there. You'll feel a little bit of wobble. So that's a more real life situation because we'll be walking and someone will call our name, or you're just looking at the car going by, or you're looking up at the sky and you move your head. So moving your head, it changes. We have sensors in our neck, and the more stiff your neck is and the more stiff your spine is, the harder that is for you to do things where you move your head and stay balanced. So those are really important to maintain your ability to do some regular things throughout the day. Is practicing some head movements, or the eyes closed, or changing your balance to a single leg or to one leg in front of the other. And those are how we progress some basic balance exercises, right? And then from there, we go to more dynamic, right? So, like we said, adding to that sit to stand, adding to the tandem stance, we might take a step, or we might close our eyes and turn our head. You can layer these things on top of each other to make the task a little bit harder, or put yourself on something uneven, right? Put yourself on a piece of foam that's more uneven. That's kind of like a therapist thing, like stand on the foam, close your eyes. Then you are really relying on your vestibular system. So there's lots of ways that we kind of manipulate all of these factors, but safely at home, you can turn your head, you can close your eyes, you can be in that corner, you can be on one leg and challenge yourself. And then you're going to test yourself all of these times. You're going to see how much improvement you're making. And then what else? What other, I'm just thinking of, turning. You can just turn your body around, right? Turning is another one that people have a lot of trouble with. So just turning around, turning back around. You can do those things with your eyes closed. Again, I'm pushing it up. So if you're in, if you're doing fitness classes and you're participating in a lot of fitness, so there's a lot of ways to advance your balance challenges. And then I really want people to find group classes whenever possible, right? So community centers. Do you guys have anything in Wisconsin for seniors to exercise during the winter?
ADRC, the Aging and Disability Resource Center, those are throughout the country. Those have really good classes and things that people can be using there. There's Silver Sneakers clubs as well at the local YMCA, I believe. Yeah. So, great. There's just some national programs that you just got to kind of find them.
Yeah. I mean, you can start in the pool. People, we talked about this last time when we talked about bone density and bone building, is that the pool is a great starting point, but you also have to supplement with stuff on the ground. Like you need to be against gravity. You need to be learning how to control your body weight against gravity. You can't just be in the pool because it's just not enough to challenge some of your systems. So getting like a Tai Chi, or we talked about Aikido, dance. There's so many different kinds of dance classes. So that's a really great way of learning to weight shift, move your body, change directions, turn around, move your head along with your feet and legs. So if you keep up some kind of practice like that, I don't know if they still do, but square dancing and things like that. They used to have a lot of that kind of get togethers. Those are less now than they used to be, I think. But line dancing, we have line dancing at our club. Qigong, there's a lot of different sort of Asian uh, Eastern type of practices that they use for these kind of, balance building. And then we have a circuit class. So that's just like I've had patients who have been a vestibular patient of mine, and I've told them, you've got to just keep working on these exercises. Your brain will adapt, right? There's neuroplasticity. Our brain has the capacity to improve over time given the right stimulus. All right, that's a lot of words, but if you challenge yourself adequately, it will cause a change in our brain that makes you more adaptable to that exercise and activity. So the more challenges you give yourself, the better you can stay. And we do not lose that capacity at any age. So we have to remember that, our balance can get better. So I had a patient who was a vestibular patient, keep working on your exercises. Okay, all right. But she always had this balance. And she started our circuit class, which we throw in some cognitive exercises, some balance exercises, some, strength and endurance and a lot of things. And they circuit around, they do all these stations and they do it for a minute and then they go to the next station. And she said, my balance is better. Like just because she was attending those classes consistently, and sort of the side effect was that her balance was getting better. So everybody in there is getting balance work, right? So their balance is getting better only because they were being consistent at coming and doing it and trying to find, and it was fun, there's music playing, there's people there to talk to. Look in your community, find places where you can get together with people. The numbers on isolation, like that, as we get older, we have less of those friend groups to support us. Make sure that you're finding ways of staying connected with other people and that you're finding fun ways of staying active. All right. So anything else, Kaitlin, you wanted to come?
I mean, you crushed it. That was great. Yeah, no, you got everything on that one. I love the ending, of finding something that's fun to do and that gets you out and seeing people. I mean, I can be a little bit of a hermit sometimes. Don't love going out all the time, but we're naturally like to be in a community. And so the more we can get out, the more groups that we can make, the more active we're going to stay. I see a lot of my patients. I live in a more rural area in central Wisconsin, and I see a lot of patients who, and especially wintertime, they're just in their apartments. There's not a lot of space. There's not a lot they're doing. So depression and isolation can happen. And when you get to that point, it seems almost impossible to get out. And when you're not getting out, you're not being as active. You're going to lose your strength and your balance and your endurance. So I think that's a great point of finding something that is fun and finding your community that's going to keep you active is crucial for prevention of really a lot of conditions.
Yeah, like we're just thinking about bones right now, but like it overlaps with so many other things. So that's what these prevention programs are really important to talk to you guys specifically, because it's essential for our well-being for in so many ways. But bones is what we're talking about, and bones need to have strength, and they need to keep practicing so that you don't have a fall and end up with a fracture. Because once your bone density is lower, this is one of the ways that you can still take control of not having a fracture, right? So even if your bone density is lower, you can do things to prevent. And our next seminar in 2 weeks is going to be, we're going to talk about other things. We're going to focus more on the spine and how we can adapt our movements for our spine. So today we're focusing on the balance part of it, but we're going to take a look at maybe more motions that you might do during the day as well. And how do you prevent your spine? There's some really important understandings, and that are helpful in understanding how to prevent your, fractures in your spine. But actually, spine fractures happen with falls. I just had somebody who had that happen. He had a fall and did a funny, weird, twisty sort of motion into a chair, and he got a compression fracture in his spine. So they are overlapping too. No, nothing is in isolation. Okay, so we want to get you the home modification checklist. Okay, so that's going to be in the, what is it? It's going to be in the Q&A section or the chat. And okay, so it's going to go, and it can go out to you in an email when you signed up for the seminar too. So I also want to make sure you guys know about, we have a Facebook group. And that is another way, if you missed the original, the first bone building seminar that Kaitlin and I did a couple weeks ago, there's a replay there. So on Facebook, it's called Successful Aging 50 Plus. And you go to that, you search for Successful Aging 50 Plus, and it's a free, you just join on Facebook for free. And then that you can get replays of this session and our other sessions. And you will have, if you wanted the ebook that we recommended last time, there's links to that as well. Okay, so we have an ebook, a free ebook on bone building or bone health that we can get to as well. Also, I wanted to let you know that we put together an OsteoFit workshop, which covers all of these things with a lot of videos on exercises, how bones work and how do we protect them, and what do we do to prevent osteoporosis. And that is on sale today. We have a coupon code that Greg is going to put in the chat, and that will get you 20% off today. Okay. So if you're interested in getting all of this information in one place where you can review it periodically or, repetitiously, it'll be yours for good. You can go in and get all of that information and stay up to date. And we will update it as we go, as we add anything to it. You'll always have access to that too. So it's the coupon code is Bone Health 20. It will be in the chat. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and find that. And those are the housekeeping things for the end. I hope this was helpful. Kaitlin, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy home health day for us. And so in 2 weeks, we're going to do the spine health component of this. And then the fourth one, which will be 2 weeks after that, we'll be doing a lifestyle modification kind of chat about diet, exercise, supplements, things that you can do and talk to your doctor about in helping with your bone density. So we will touch on hormone replacement, supplements that are essential, and then what foods are helpful to help secure better bones and better health. All right. I thank you guys all for being there today, talking to us. Well, not talking to us, but yeah, listening to us and chatting. And I hope it was helpful. The takeaways are the most important thing, and the details are in the workshop. And just trying to know you've got to find ways of helping you stay active. All right. Thank you, Kaitlin.
Yeah. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Greg, for making this happen on the back end of the technological thing. And thank you for everyone who attended. And if you didn't get to see it, we'll have the replay on the Facebook group. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care.